So, as you may know, this is my new book and deck, The Divine Gypsy Mother, and I'm going to do some techniques with you. I'm going to go through some foundational ideas and techniques using the Divine Gypsy Mother. If you haven't checked it out, go look at the book and the deck on Scarlet Imprint's website. I'll link it down below. So, an important thing to keep in mind with the Gypsy cards is that, unlike the tarot, reading a single card probably will not get you much traction. It's not impossible to draw a single card and get an answer to a question, but really the Gypsy, like the Lenormand, shines when you do card combinations, when you do two or more cards and you read them as a short sentence or a concept. So this is the starting point really with the Gypsy cards. And a traditional technique that's quite popular with the Gypsy cards in the Netherlands is the two-card cut before you do the reading. And that is when you shuffle the cards, you get it ready for your clients or for yourself, you shuffle them nicely, and then you take the cards and you cut the pack as you would normally do with cards, and then you combine the two cards you see there to get the voorprognose, or kind of it gives a snapshot of what the querent either is hoping for or what they're fearing in this reading. So it's not really giving an auspice about the reading. It tends to just reflect back the client or the person who's reading state of consciousness or what's on their mind. And this can be very helpful for a reader because it gives you some sort of insight about, firstly, whether they're in a good place or a bad place, and then also whether what they're trying to get out of the reading or where their sort of thinking is with the reading. And then sometimes mirroring that back to them is a very helpful psychological technique. So it's not going to give you necessarily the answer about the question of the reading, but it's a snapshot of the querent's mind. So in this case, we've got unexpected, joy, and fortune. And these are really the two most happy cards in the pack. And seeing them together like that is really auspicious, right? So, it's kind of just saying luck upon luck. And unexpected joy has a more surprising kind of element. You can see by this guy's face there that he's come upon it somewhat accidentally, and it has a more fleeting quality, and fortune is a more powerful, auspicious card, right? So this is somewhat harder to make into a combination because they're kind of getting at the same thing, but we could safely say that the querent is looking to improve their fortunes. Maybe they need a break, maybe they're hoping for some luck in their life and some sort of change or expansion or growth. Yeah. Then you put the cards back together and you shuffle and you lay out whatever technique you're going to be working with. So that's the basic idea behind the two-card cut. But let's do some more combinations. Yeah. So let's see what we get here. And here we already see how straightforward the Gypsy cards are. We have money, misfortune, yeah? And just by creating a compound noun, just by combining the two titles, we already have a very clear little reading here. Money, misfortune, yeah? This is, of course, talking about financial ruin, financial problems, or a financial shock or upset of some sort. The misfortune card usually comes with a bit of a shock or an upset, and it is one of the more unhappy cards, the more inauspicious cards in the pack. So, we know that's not so good. And then, of course, money has to do with our income, our valuables, anything in life where we draw value from, right? Easy peasy, very straightforward. Let's do another one. Somewhat more troubling. Widower death, yeah? So, as I was saying in an earlier video, we need to keep in mind that the widower is usually referring to an older or elderly man, so someone just beyond middle age or older. It sometimes shows a parent or an older person, someone who's more senior or has some seniority in life. So that tends to be its main signification. The title widower sounds quite negative because it has associations of bereavement, but that's not too relevant usually with the widower card. We just read it as a person significator. And in this case, widower death. And death, of course, we don't get literal with it. We won't assume that someone has died, but we can assume that firstly they're going through a big change. Something is ending. The death card in the Gypsy cards usually shows an end, and that end is often quite painful. No one likes losing anything, and the pain is signified here by thorns. So we know that this older man, the widower, is going through something painful. Maybe he's losing something. Maybe there is a big change in his life. It could sometimes, in fact, be talking about health, provided there are other indicators. Little money thief. Interesting. So little money, as opposed to just money, is in this interpretation of the Gypsy cards, which tends to lean towards the Dutch usage of the little money, which shows having a lack of income or things being financially tight, there being some restriction with our finances. And thief, of course, is showing loss. So it's like the little that we do have, we're losing. It's being drained off. The thief has got a very corrosive kind of quality, and this thief is usually taking away from the preceding card. So little money thief. So it's like with what little income we have, what little resources we have, is being drained away and lost. It's very straightforward. Notice how even by just combining the two titles into a compound noun, little money thief, we already have a clear concept there. And this is my first bit of advice working with the Gypsy cards. Keep it simple. You don't need to get too complicated with it. Usually by overcomplicating things is when we go wrong with the Gypsy cards. So that is the 2-card card. We're working with the Gypsy cards, and specifically with the Divine Gypsy Mother, which is my book and deck published by Scarlet Imprint, which is a reboot of the Gypsy cards. And in my continuing effort to do some tutorials for the system on the YouTube channel, I'm going to teach you another important basic technique. And this is to look at the polarity of the cards. Even before we get into particular card meanings, the Gypsy cards already have polarity built into them, and we can already get a basic auspice or sort of feel or temperature for an issue just by looking at the polarity of the cards. So that means the cards are usually either negative, positive, or neutral. And in a 3-card line, by just counting the predominant number of cards, we can already see whether something is looking good, something is looking bad, or sort of mixed. And this is really a strength of the Gypsy cards. By focusing on that polarity and keeping it very clear in your mind, you don't even really need to interpret the cards themselves. You will, of course, but you can get a sort of a clear answer to your question just by looking at this. So in this case, we see misfortune, a strongly negative card, fidelity, which is a neutral card usually, and sadness, which is a negative card also. And the neutral cards have a tendency of absorbing the polarity of the cards that are in company with them. So neutral cards become positive with good cards, or they become bad with bad cards. So we can safely assume here that this is a predominantly bad situation, even though we don't even haven't even really gotten into the meanings of the cards yet. We can say, Well, whatever the question we asked here, if the question was phrased appropriately, this is going to give us a no. Yeah? And this I call the auspice. By looking at the predominance of good and bad cards, you can get an overall auspice, and by staying mindful of that, it will help you to interpret the rest of the cards. So let's do another line. Lover, beloved, and house. So this is an interesting one. Lover, beloved, house. All three of these are relatively neutral. Yeah, the house leans a little bit more in the positive side of things, and in my system, my treatment of the Gypsy cards, I kind of associate it as a more neutral card, but it leans in the positive direction, but there's a predominance of neutral pitched cards here. So this situation is kind of, undecided, I would say, in terms of its auspice. It's neither going in a particularly bad direction, it's neither going in a particularly good direction. Yeah, having the house in the outcome, the third card, is of course a good thing, because the third card tends to be more important, as it's sort of the outcome in a line of cards. So whatever the card is in the outcome in a line of cards will have more weight. Yeah, and because the house is somewhat more, even though it's a neutral card, it has got some positive associations of safety, security, stability, and so on, that we like. So it's neutral, leaning in a good direction. Let's do one more. So here we go. This is interesting. We've got two negative cards and a neutral card there in the end. And so this is not looking so good. Even without looking at the meanings, we know that this is predominantly bad. And the marriage card will absorb, the neutral card will absorb these negative qualities, right? So that's giving us a no. And if our question is pitched correctly, that negative auspice is going to give us a reliable no. So what do I mean with pitching the question correctly? Seeing as that we are reading a predominance of bad cards as a no and a predominance of good cards as a yes, you will want to pitch your question in a way that it will answer the question based on a positive. That means you've got to ask for what you want. So let's say in this question, if we were asking, will this marriage work out? Yeah, we're pitching it in a positive way because we're kind of asking about a good outcome for something we want. We want it to work out. Therefore, reading negative cards as no and positive cards as yes is going to give us an answer that makes sense. That's important. So in that question, predominance of bad cards tells us very simply no. Even without looking at the specifics of the cards, we know it's giving a no to that answer. Very simple, yeah? But then, of course, anger, risk, marriage, yeah? So this shows a relationship in which there is a lot of fighting, probably, yeah? That the relationship itself is, there is a risk that things are going to come apart, that there will be more conflict and ongoing troubles. Yeah, there is something about this that is somewhat like a game of chance. This relationship is a gamble, you could say. Yeah, and because there's a predominance of negative cards here, we can safely assume that this gamble is not going to pay off the way that you would like it, right? You could also look at it another way. The risk card, as you can see by these shady looking characters, is often about corrosive influences or people in our life. And so another way to read this is, no, it's not going to work out, and probably this relationship is a toxic influence, a bad influence, due to all the fighting, due to the conflict and aggression in the relationship. Yeah. Now it's interesting that the marriage card is in the outcome, so it gets a stronger sort of position, and so you might want to think about what that means. Yeah, maybe the person tries to hold on to this relationship, or maybe they try and stick it out even though it's genuinely not going to work out, something like that. Yeah, but notice how you can take the auspice and sort of build a meaning on top of that using the meanings of the cards. Good. So yeah, that's it. I hope you found that helpful. Some tips and tricks for working with the Gypsy card straight out of the box. Don't overcomplicate it in the beginning. First get to know the auspice of the cards. First get used to doing compound nouns, and then you'll see things begin to fall into place and you can get fancy with it. If you'd like to order the Divine Gypsy Mother, it's linked down below. You can check out on the website, Scarlet Imprint's website. And I also invite you to go have a look at my website. We have in the visual lighting service Gypsy candles, and these have been a big success. People are getting quite extraordinary results with those, and that's when we're using the Gypsy system for candle magic. So we use these as labels for the visual lights, and then we use different combinations of candles to spell out magical effects, the way the cards would spell out a divinatory sentence. Amazing results. People have been having a really good time ordering these and working with these, so go check it out. Of course, you're also welcome to come to my website and order a reading with me. I always read with the Gypsy cards, no matter what kind of reading I do. So if you want to see the Gypsy cards in action by the person who wrote this deck, who created this deck and this book, you know where to find that. And of course, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And yeah, it was great being with you again today, and see you next time.